My name is Pavel Golovy. I work as a senior illustrator at Paradox. My role is to visually spark your imagination when you make your stories in the game. Today I'm going to uncover some of the thinking processes and decision making behind illustration creation for Crusader Kings, and specifically I'm going to take a loading screen as an example. This is probably the most challenging type of illustration we have in the project. Basically, there are three stages in creating an illustration. The first one is composition sketches, then we have color sketches, and a final painting. Each of these processes can have several iterations of the art team review. The entire process with all the iterations can take up to a month. It really depends if I have any other illustrations to work on at that moment. Quite often I switch between one task and another just to refresh my perceptiveness of the work I'm doing. For most of my work I use Rebel as a primary painting software. It's almost 95% of work I do there. We had two competing ideas initially. One of them was that old legend of a lady that was stranded in a tower and suffered from a curse. That curse didn't allow her to actually look into the real world. Eventually, she saw a beautiful knight that she fell in love with. By looking at him, she actually brought about the curse and she basically doomed her to death. The classic interpretation of the legend was created in the 19th century, but the origin of it goes back to medieval times, to 13th century. To put it simple, this is both about death and a legend. It is a good metaphor for the expansion. Analogies between the curse that woman suffered from and the diseases for medieval people not knowing the cause and mechanics of these illnesses. That was basically a curse. When I start to work on a piece, the first thing I need to do is to put my thoughts on a paper so that they have a visual form. And usually I have a few ideas that I play with. Legends of the Dead presented a good opportunity to think of something different of the major line of power struggle that we have in the game. When I work on initial sketches, my primary goal is to express my idea in the simplest possible form. So I usually create a series of black and white sketches where I try to convey the idea without many details. We have art reviews with entire art team, entire 2D art team, those who are involved in illustration work. But we also present our art to all parties involved, like for game designers, who can provide us with valuable feedback on how our work fits the context of the expansion we work on. Ideally would be to create as many sketches as possible, but since we have some time constraint, usually I end up with a dozen of sketches and only a few of them are submitted to art reviews that we have in our team. For color sketches, there are many sources of color combinations that you can get inspiration from. It's very hard to come up with idea just from your mind exclusively. You usually have some references. You can rely on your own experience, like live drawing you did in the past, or you can even take a magazine cover as inspiration for an interesting color combination. For that work specifically, I used AI as an assistant for the creative process. I provide AI with my composition sketches and some color images where the color palette I expect to be quite fitting and interesting for the image I create. The thumbnails I get from AI, they are pretty rough, and it's not a detailed image that I'm looking for in these generations. It's mostly the idea, some spark of my imagination. When we decided to follow the direction of Lady of Shalott legend, I felt a little bit uncomfortable with it initially. The reason for that is that this topic was widely used by the artists in the history. We can recall a lot of paintings by Pre-Raphaelite artists, specifically by John William Waterhouse, pretty famous paintings. And one of the goals I had in mind is to make our version of Lady of Shalott different from these artists. During initial exploration sketching process, we were looking into composition that is very different from what has been done by these painters. That is why the composition I had in mind is top-down, mostly focused on the character, and I try to avoid these lavish elements in the surroundings. No fancy boats, pretty traditional dress, and so on. For myself personally, I found very appealing, very interesting that contrast of flourishing life, young lady, and premature death that happened to her. It also echoes well with this sensation of short life in medieval ages, often shortened by a sudden disease. I hope I managed to convey some of the sensations and emotions I talked about when describing the illustration process. Legends of the Dead is going to be released on March 4th. I hope you will enjoy the new drama and flavor introduced in that expansion. Subscribe if you want more content like this.